Okay, so for this next session, I would be introducing our next speaker, Attorney Toto Villareal, who will be giving us a talk about comprehensive sexual education. He was a former chairperson of the Philippines Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, MTRCB. He is the adjunct professor for remedial law, evidence, and criminal procedure, and for media and entertainment law in Ateneo de Manila Law School, wherein he holds the Joaquin Bernos S.J. Professional Chair. He is also a lecturer at the University of the Philippines Law Center, and he also teaches at the teaches intellectual property at the University of Asia and the Pacific in the School of Communication. And he was also a former, he was part of the former committee of,
General Counsel.
sorry.
General Counsel.
Okay. He was a former general counsel of the Senate Committee on Justice and
Human Rights.
Human Rights. So let us welcome Attorney Toto Villareal.
Yes. Testing natin, Kuya. Okay, thank you. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Okay lang ba kung medyo taglish yung ating okay? Foreign and so they're may afam. Okay. Okay, so with that I have to speak in King's English. Okay. So good morning. Parang Steve Jobs. Okay. Yeah, Nax. Okay. So I'll try to shake off. You know, every time I give a talk with, let's say, PAREF, no? Or even EduChild, I'm always afraid. Okay? Kasi ang siseryoso nyo eh. Yan. Okay? Medyo geologs po ako. Okay. Geologs means cool. Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay? Yan. So, I was ambushed by Man Rentoy, and even before that, one of the few Lasalians that I admire, Father Cayo Estrada, to give this talk. No? Because during that time, for context, this was late January or early February, and they were concerned about what has been emerging in media as what you call comprehensive sexuality education, okay, or CSE. In fact, when I looked it up, I thought it was about civil service, no? Civil service examination, okay, diba? Now, the thing there is that after a while, just for context, there was a version of the bill that is what was sponsored, until now sponsored, by Senator Risa Hontiveros with some co-sponsors. But then, after the reaction of Malacanang and some interventions inside that I am not free to tell you, okay, unless you buy me a beer, okay, what we have right now is a substitute bill. Okay? It's not the one that was very hot in the media. This is the new one. Okay? Essentially the same, but watered down. We would want to, I made sure that we will be talking about what is on the table right now. Now, also, I propose that for purposes of this morning, we approach different, because when I attend certain let us say gatherings, when you discuss a pending bill, they strike at the heart of the let us say what is the central theme, okay, of the bill. But forgive me, I would want to go a bit technical, because if you go to various fora and there will be discussions and you're hitting hard on something, okay, it may be that there will be some person there who knows the workings of the law and the workings of legislation, which is a subspecialty in law, okay, that you may just be, well, put in a spot. Worse, you'll be accused of you don't know what you're talking about. Okay? So, if there is something that what do you call this, I would want to impart, no, yung parang pabaon. No? A pabaon is a viand inside a lunchbox, ma'am. Viand. Oh, by the way, Filipinos only, with other countries don't use viand, no? Okay, no? Snack. Teach? Oh, right. Oh. So, if there is something, I would want a little bit, no? Well, forgive the bias, but I learned this from Saint Josemaria, study, in virtue of study. In Filipino, we called it, and I will pronounce it faster, aral. Aral. That we have more or less mastered, or we have studied the subject matter with all its nuances. And law is certainly different. So, for example, this is a bill that maybe you're expecting me to do a critique. I change a bit the manner of presentation. Okay? So that we will have some sort of context. So, I call it Musings on the Prevention of Adolescent Pregnancy Act of 2025. So, it is a Senate bill. If there's a Senate bill, normally, there should be an equivalent bill also in the House of Representatives. But it can happen also that come by come, the House will just approve this. Okay? In other words, in the Philippines, you have two houses of Congress. Okay? The Senate and then the House of Representatives. By the way, if you have time, if you want to ask me things about the impeachment thing, you may do so. But I have to qualify that I will just give you the law and the facts on the matter, because there are two pending cases in the Supreme Court, one a prohibition and another a mandamus. Okay? We do not want to be accused of violating the subjudice rule. Okay? Okay. By the way, you have Latin here, sub judice. Okay? That's how we were taught, which is pronounced, but we in law here, the practitioners pronounce it in the way that the Americans do. So, certiorari. We say certiorari, not certiorari. Okay? Because we reserve that during Christmas parties where you have pulboron, is type of, and then you say certiorari again, okay? And the first one that blows, okay, the whistle, okay, that would be the winner. Okay, so this one is pending. Okay, it may be thrown back to the committee level. It has passed second reading, or it may be thrown to plenary. But the good news is the Senate is in recess, and it will convene only on June 2. That is the 19th Congress. The 19th Congress is from June 2 to June 30. Afterwards, you will have a new set of senators. Okay? Of course, there will be those who will be left. But what in the House, it will practically be a total revamp, so to speak. Okay? Because the Senate is a continuing institution from the 19th to the 20th Congress. But the House, they will already, after June 30, it will be a totally different House of Representatives. They may have to elect a new speaker, theoretically. Okay? Okay, so, dito po tayo. We are here. Okay? I'm translating eh. Okay, so let's see if this clicker works. Uy, ayun, sorry. May marka pa ako, no? Okay. Now, this is Senate Bill 1979. So, okay, bear with me again. It says an act providing for a national policy in preventing adolescent pregnancies institutionalizing social protection for adolescent parents, and providing funds therefor. Title is important because under the Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, every bill shall only have one subject matter, which shall be embraced in the title thereof. I remember many years ago, just by way of example, that during the time of GMA, there was a proposed RH law or bill. And it did not really gain ground, but what was done was during the BICAM, by the way, I keep on saying BICAM, Bicameral Conference Committee. You have, let's just say, so many years, 3 years of debate, nearly 3 years of debate in the House and in the Senate. And then in a hotel function room or coffee shop, Senate and House will come together. Usually sa House yan. Wala naman si Gaston Bunting dito. Okay, sige, I can talk freely. By the way, I can talk freely because he's my classmate in high school. Okay, and in since grade 5. Okay. Now, in the Senate, normally it's just in the conference room. Would you believe that everything that has been taken up in the version House and then Senate, come by Bicameral Conference Committee, they can scrap everything and come up with a new one. And that's the only bill. Therefore, the technique is, ang babantayan always, what you will guard is the Bicameral Conference Committee. If you would want to disguise yourselves as waitresses or okay, I would encourage, because during that time there was no more RH bill, but there was the so-called Magna Carta for women, which when I was in government, a few years in government, I was one of the champions of the Magna Carta for women. And I work with the Gabriela, etc. Okay, mga amiga ko yan lahat sila. They're my friends. And would you believe, to digress a bit, when I give talks, I present works or material by protecting women, authored by a certain Carol Wojtyła. So the Gabriela, the congresswomen, they were so happy. Ganda niyan to. Where did you get that? And then it was that Dignitatis Mulieris something, right? Okay. Then I told them, uy, that's John Paul II. And but I didn't tell them yet, diba? I didn't tell them yet. Only later when they liked the doctrine. Okay. Now, in that PCW, there was a provision on rural women. And they tried to insert the whole RH into that one paragraph. Okay? Now, my tip there is, first, do not look at the morality aspect. Because as a senator friend of mine, pag naglalabi kayo dito, tandaan nyo, please remember, I have to express in the vernacular because the impact. Kami ay senador, kami ay congressman ng Republika ng Pilipinas, hindi lamang ng Katoliko, hindi lamang ng Protestante, hindi lamang ng etc. etc. You know. So in other words, they of all faiths. Okay? That is why there is a debate, let's say, on the so-called indissolubility of marriage. Is marriage, notwithstanding the laudatory provisions in the Constitution, does the Constitution prohibit divorce? Okay. The thing there is that you may have a problem with if you are going to say it's not there's a school of thought it's prohibited. Another school of thought, under equal protection, di ba? You have due process, equal protection. We have also indigenous communities that practice divorce. If we are going to ban it by a national law, we are violating their rights. And during the Japanese time, we had absolute divorce in the Philippines. What I'm saying is that we are all here, classmates, so to speak, magkakampi tayo, we are all with the same team. But when you go out there, aral dapat tayo. Okay? And be ready. And then, learn also how to smile. Now, okay. Now, so, my question to you, therefore, is, are you against, you need not answer that because we can have Q&A later. Are you against adolescent or teenage pregnancies? I think the answer be a resounding yes. Therefore, Riza et al. Are your allies. Gets nyo? We, Riza Ontiveros and you, if you read from the same page, both of you at least agree that we are against teenage pregnancies. Correct? Okay. So, in other words, medyo you were unsettled. That's the law. In fact, during our age, they were saying there were protests that there should be sex education should be not taught grade 5, grade 6, etc. because they're too young. But what if under the IRR of the Department of Education, it commissions or contracts a group of parents and educators from PAREF or from EduChad? Will you protest? You won't. There is nothing, therefore, wrong in the law. Correct? As long as the norms are there. Therefore, the challenge always at the end of the day is to participate in Filipino, makilahok. We cannot just be there or in social media. We have to be in the forefront. Okay? So, sorry, may tinandaan ko to eh. Is there a way to expand it, Kuya? This is Department Order number 31. Anyway, I'll find a way so that the slides can be shared to you. And it is dated 2018. And it is signed by the, thank you very much. Parang nasa Itbulaga. Okay. Okay. No. Yan. By the way, those are my kuyas, no? We have a group, don't tell Joey De Leon, but this was coined by Bossing. Tito, Vic, and Toto. Okay? I'll show you the picture later. So, this is signed by Secretary Briones. Who is she? DepEd Secretary. And under the doctrine of qualified political agency in constitutional law, she is an alter ego of the President of the Republic of the Philippines at the time. Were you allies of the former President? Did you cooperate? Why did you not stop this? I'm also guilty, but I'm not an ally of that President. So, sobra naman, Kuya. Okay. The definition of CSE here and CSE in the Bill of Riza, okay, medyo naabutan ko sa school yan eh. Okay? Kasi girlfriend yan ni Taning. Not Satan, ha? Not Satan. In the Philippines, the nickname for Satan is Taning. Okay? Taning is Lorenzo Tanyada III, or Erin Tanyada, who is my friend. He was beside me in the ordination of a friend of ours, I think it was Father Louis David, in the Oratory of St. Ignatius, when Cardinal Sin was doing the ordination there, and right after Cardinal Sin disappeared, and Max Sullivan, the late Max Sullivan, was so fidgety because Enrile already defected during the time of that ordination. That was February 2022, 1986. Yan. So, when Briones signs, it is Duterte who signed this. That is qualified political agency. It's not politics. Now, the thing there is that since that time, at the very least, CSE, which we will learn later, has already been in place and practiced and in our public schools. Okay? And that's that's even before the pandemic, right? Kuya. So, rundown lang. Every law will have its so-called purposes. Because if you are going to challenge a law, how do you challenge a law? You challenge a law usually by raising an issue of substantive due process. There are two kinds of due process. Substantive, meaning simple, the law is oppressive and unfair. And second, procedural due process, which violates the norm that you have a system of laws that hears before it condemns. Also, equal protection. And how do you do that? You go right away to the Supreme Court and stop the law's implementation. That was what happened in RH. That was what happened in the VAT before and several other cases. And you call that, you invoke the Supreme Court to exercise its extraordinary certiorari jurisdiction. So, prevention of teenage pregnancies, national priority. Are you against that? Oh. Vital role of the youth, etc. Well, we call this healthy babies and apple pie statements. Okay. Usually I add motherhood statements. But I have a friend in yung mga feminist, sabi niya, to sexist pag sinabi mong motherhood. Okay? So I will steer clear of that. Okay? Recognize the role of women. So, fundamentality of women and men before the law. Why? Because later on you will see in this law, there is a requirement for male participation. Because what happens in my own personal experience, sometimes I do yung legal clinic, outreach with the marginalized. Would you believe, like in Quezon City, one of my mentees and students, Miggy Suntay, okay, he organized something like that, aided by, would you believe, a Muslim student of mine. Okay? Now, there were ladies there, single moms, they look 65 and they hardly had any teeth, but they were only in their 30s. Why? Because after being impregnated by their so-called partners, won't even have the courage to marry them. If they're drunk, they cannot provide anything, because I was involved also in an NGO. I was a trustee with the, what do you call this, with the Association of Major Religious Superiors. Our finding was that it's the women that support, in the marginalized, it's the women that support the family. If there is no, your budget is 100 pesos only, they will get a sachet of orange juice, powdered orange juice, get some water somewhere, mix it, get little ice, like that, and that is what you call, ma'am, samalamig, cold drinks. The husband is there, or partner is there, dead drunk, okay, and sleeping. And when they're awake, and you cannot provide anything, whether it's something related to the bed, you know what I mean, they just box the women. And worse, if they're like that, do you expect them to participate, let us say, in Lamas sessions? No. That is why this law says the men should be involved. Right? Parent-teacher conference. The challenge in many schools is that, where are the dads? Okay? Yan. Challenge yan. I myself, I was, when my son in another school was grade 2. I found myself in the committee. I was the only guy. Wala naman akong matris. I do not have matrix, ma'am. I do not have a womb. Okay. Right to health, etc. So, yun. Accurate information. That's where maybe you are concerned about. Because what information will be given, young minds and hearts, especially our young girls. Right? But then again, my approach in law is that you presume first that the lawmaker intended correctly. Okay? That is the approach. We call that statutory construction. Okay? Now, so information. Why? There's a right to information. And I have a right also to bodily integrity and so on and so forth. Help prevent early marriages, high-risk marriage. Yes, because if you go to the depressed areas, you will have problems. Okay? As early as 12, 13, young girls, they don't even have graduated, if at all. They have not completed all the episodes in a telenovela, a K-drama, they're already pregnant. Okay? So, with that, I would want, you see, Section 21, we jump. When there is a law, sometimes we say, down with that law. But there is a rule. If any part, section, or provision of the Act is invalid or unconstitutional, other provisions not affected thereby shall remain in full force and effect. So let us say you criticize this law, you fight for it, and let us say it will, the president will sign it. The moment you sign it, she signs it, then you go to court, right? That's why, by the way, why is it that when there is a law being questioned, normally the respondent is the executive secretary, right? Because the executive secretary precisely taga-execute, the one who implements the law under the law of being the alter ego of the President of the Republic of the Philippines. So, we have to have our feet on the ground. All other statutes, executive orders, this is basic. These two are called the cajon. Okay? They are standard, the repealing clause and the separability clause. Okay. Now, what will be repealed if ever? Okay. All that are inconsistent, but it's an attempt to harmonize with the Reproductive Health Act. Okay? And also the MCW, Magna Carta for Women, which for me, I'll be candid with you, I think kulang pa. It still is wanting in giving full protection to women. Okay? It says here, nothing in this law amends or repeals 256 and 259 of the RPC, Revised Penal Code. The Revised Penal Code, of course, is our listing of felonies, okay, that are punishable by law. 256 and 259 pertain to 256, intentional abortion. Okay. So in other words, Risa made it clear, and et al., that abortion is still a crime. Okay? And there is also 259, abortion practiced by physician, health worker, or assistant, that is a crime. The dispensation of abortives or abortifacients. It is a crime. This law has been there since 1930. Okay? You just need to tap it. Okay? Now, definition of terms. This is important because definitions control how the law is to be implemented. When we say comprehensive sexuality education, it refers to age-appropriate, culturally relevant program to teaching about sexuality and relationships by providing scientifically accurate, realistic, and non-judgmental information. If you read that, okay, would you say that there is something wrong with that? Age appropriate. Well, I learned this from my mentors I have mentors who are actually religious sisters, the Pauline sisters. Okay, they are into media. And they were the ones who taught me about age appropriateness and why the hell our movies, for instance, and then our television programs have that general audience, parental guidance. Okay, they told me that is based on the development, and one psychologist friend told me it's actually Piagetian. The norm is Piagetian. And the thing there is that they were talking about robustness in terms of absorbing, okay, phenomena information. A 10-year-old boy or girl, for instance, if the 10-year-old, can that person be told about death in the family? Yes, but caution should be done and explained very well. Or another, sorry to show a showbiz for age appropriateness. Maybe some of you, if she's a bit semi-retired, some of you here are fans of Sarah Geronimo. Okay, she's a singer in the Philippines. She one of her hits is Tala, no? Tala, like that means star. Now, Sarah, okay, her songs were very pop, okay, teeny bopperish, if you want to put it that way. But until she had that relationship, not with Mateo, Cheese Max, okay, not with Mateo, but that other guy, okay, I think it was Gerard Anderson, and she had a real heartbreak. By the way, I have to tell you, I'm a popster, no? Okay, I'm a Sarah fan as well as a Vilmanian, okay. That's for another day. Okay. Now, as a popster, we are aware that her songs and her way of performing suddenly matured when she had those heartaches, when she became older. But as a younger person, no, she can just do vicarious performances. Gets? So that's the same, age appropriateness. Okay? Age appropriateness. So, if a girl, young girl, 10 to 12, starts with her menstruation, certainly there has to be the right information provided her. Okay? Okay. Now, culturally relevant, because, as I said, we have in fact indigenous communities here in the Philippines. Also, the common urban culture. When I was with the MTRCB, the norm was that our programs can be regulated, and the norm is if they are in accord with Filipino cultural values and standards. But then there would be those who say, okay, ours is a Christian nation, blah, blah, blah. We are very coy, the women. But is that true? Now, they would say they were questioning my husband's lover before in GMA. But then again, if I go around, there is widespread acceptance at the very least of the LGBT, right? We may be living under a rock. What I'm saying is that even if you invoke cultural values, that is evidentiary in nature. That's why I asked them to get socio-anthropologists from the University of the Philippines or from LaSalle or from the Ateneo. Diba? You cannot just say that. Okay? Scientifically accurate, realistic, and because of the stigma. I recall a case where if a girl becomes pregnant in the not C, D, E, F economic bracket, that 13 or 14-year-old girl, it's quite possible that the mother will just tell her to get out of the house. Because the additional child and the good-for-nothing jowa means boyfriend, also can be female, jowa. Good-for-nothing jowa will also be a part of the household. You are earning 100 pesos a day, and you will add 3 more mouths to feed. You see? So, you were a flirt, get out. Okay, so that's what happens. So, you are judged. Okay? By the way, I mentioned a TV program, It Bulaga, okay? That is, there is a portion there, adage called, do not be judgmental. Right? Huwag kang judgment. That's where it came from. Okay, now, CSC, it has to be consistent with the RH and concerns reproductive health and sexuality. Are we agreeable to, at the very least, that there is a need for reproductive health? Otherwise, if your answer is no, what about prenatal care? That's reproductive health. The thing there is that, what do you call this? It may be just a matter of fine-tuning what it means. And therefore, like in RH, the battle is not so much in the law, but in the implementing rules and regulations. Have you attended public hearings? Have you, with respect, I felt guilty. When I learned that this was 2018, I said to myself, you're lucky, your PAREF parents, etc. Same is true with other schools there are privileged students. But then again, since 2018, our marginalized kababayans, fellow Filipinos, families, not even having the blessings of the sacrament, but all are living together. They don't have even time to attend, let us say, lectures on responsible pair or correct natural family planning because they need to eat. Where were we? It's going on right all over. And I'm telling that to myself. It's not a guilt trip, but rather maybe a call to action. Okay? Ano po, in the vernacular, sorry, but it's more powerful. Ano po ang tugon natin nangyari sa lipunan? Yung kultura po ba natin dito sa PAREF Southridge o sa ibang PAREF schools, tayo ba ay attuned dun sa nangyayari? Yung ating mga anak, when they start prayer, sinubukan na ba natin, umpisa tayo sa ngalan ng Ama, ng Anak, Espiritu Santo, Amen? Dahil yan ang lengguwahe ng ating mga kababayang na marginalized, na mahihirap. It's a challenge. It cannot be abstract. And I'm hitting myself on the face and in the tummy and everywhere because I really felt guilty about that. But, well, mabuti na yun na alam natin. CSC shall address adolescent pregnancy as a health issue. Okay? So, now, you will see that it is to be community-based and school-based. No wonder, it's like the law merely ratifies what DepEd has been doing all along. Okay? And it will be community-based, barangay, basic community, school-based. Question: do you think our teachers and instructors are well educated and informed to be able to teach these things? Okay. Tingnan natin. Huwag tayo mag-judge muna. But let's see. And then we empower them. Maybe some group of moms here, you go to the nearest public school, you offer yourselves on, and create modules for them. Okay? Now, because, you know, when I was in second year high school, so that would be what? Okay, in the hindi naman, mga 81, 82, yan, ganyan. 70s nga, yan, early 80s, late 70s. And in second year, we were required, that's during martial law, okay, we were required to have sex education. And the one who taught us sex education was our PE teacher, si Mr. Opeñano. Okay? So he was teaching basketball, and then volleyball, etc. Oh boys, come here. Then he got a manual. I will now teach you about sex education. Anak ng kulane. Okay? Well, because he was required. Okay? Of course, he did not teach anything dangerous. Okay? Yan. Because we belong to a Dominican school. The oldest the oldest high school in Southeast Asia. That's my high school. Conquistar Porto Honor Nuevas Glorias. Yan. When we extol our school. By the way, we have a saint as our foremost alumnus. Saint Liam de la Paz. Only that, I think, he was schooled in our school and then sent back to Vietnam. And then I think the elephant, when he came back, stepped on him, etc., and he got beheaded. Okay, kaya nga saint eh. Now, while addressing familial societal that perpetuate lack of awareness, the challenge is, if someone, you have to beat them to it, what will they be aware of? Okay, what will they be aware of? Okay, there. Allowed access to sex and reproductive health information. Okay, below the age of 16 shall require consent. By the way, in the CSE of Secretary Briones, adolescents are defined as 10 years old to 19. Okay. In the version that the President of the Philippines saw prior to the substitute bill, it was lower. As early as something like grade 1, grade 2. And that's why there are modules. In fact, I will tell you, I borrowed a great deal of information from the advocacies of former CJ Maylu Sereno. And then sila Pastor Tanchi. Okay? So, the evangelicals, like in the States, are way, way ahead, okay, in fighting for all these things. Okay? They have even a legal bureau. And, of course, indigenous peoples, mandatory representative. Now, yan again, no? Now, also, health facilities, you have to ensure confidentiality. How are we going to ensure that? That would be in the IRR. Care and management of first-time parents there. All pregnant adolescents, especially among the poor and hard-to-reach groups. The urban poor. Those also, yung mga uring magbubukid. Uring mamalakaya. You know uring mamalakaya? Fishermen. Very good. Yan. Dapat alam natin yan. Because sometimes I talk to students, they live under a rock eh. Kami, we were trained. No? Even sometimes we made mistakes. Like, I was in law school. We went to a leader of a indigenous community. He was wearing Lacoste. Okay? Real na cause, not class A. And then, my classmate told him, saan po ang inyong bahag? I will translate, where is your G-string? Oh, very embarrassing. Right? Because he was influenced by what? The stereotypes. Okay? That edu should also be on our part. How to approach these things. Okay? But, moms, dads, and titos and titas, look at this one. Safe sex practices. What does that mean? You talk to 10-year-old, okay, kids, okay, and then of course 12, 13, 14, 15. Remember that the presidents in other countries in this connection would have to dwell or involve, let us say, even to the point of excluding parents because they are too judgmental. They can be substitute people like community workers. Now, if you're going to ask me, is that legal? I'm sorry to tell you, but there is a framework that allows for that. In constitutional law, very basic. That's why you have to know how to be able to deal with it. Under the Constitution and under our laws, we have the notion of parens patriae. The state, in the event that parents are not able to protect or care for children, the state can come in and be the substitute parent. That's why in other countries you find children being taken away by social workers because children have become punching bags of parents who just quarrel with one another. And since children, most especially the young ladies, have a right to reproductive health, have a right to be informed, and then they already have becomes pregnant, but then has syphilis, okay, has STD, or what we call here tulo. You know tulo? Oh, tulo is syphilis, gonorrhea. Okay. We have to know the language. We should not live under a rock. And therefore, if there is that framework, the state workers can get them and provide them with this. And then provide them with intrauterine device, the guys with capote, raincoat. That's what we call them on the streets. But of course, in more sophisticated places, they're called condoms. But in the Philippine streets, we call them capote, which means rubber raincoat. Okay? Yun. You have to know these things. Safe sex, yan. You have to protest that if that's a no. Okay. Practices. Okay. That's what? Male involvement. Okay? Yan. In the prevention of other, because it takes two to tango. My late mentor, Father Bernas, used to say, if he is asked in the Constitution, if you read this constitutional book on constitutional law, he has a very succinct explanation about how the evolution of that provision, which is on the protection of the child from the moment of conception. That is actually a secondary paragraph because the thing there is that whole provision is about human rights. You look it up in the Constitution. The state upholds the dignity of the human person, and the dignity of the human person is the basis for all human rights. Why is it that those who propagate this law use the rights framework? Why are we not using the rights framework? Why? Because it sounds leftist? It's there in the Constitution. I will continue. Based for all human rights, and therefore, the child shall enjoy protection, the unborn child shall enjoy protection from the moment of conception. What did the constitutional framers, the likes of Bernas, the likes of Bacani, why did they provide for that? Because the human dignity starts from that blob, so to speak. In his book, Father Berna says that this was introduced by a layperson. He calls him stalwart layperson by the name of Bernardo Villegas. Okay? And then, kwentuhan kami kasi when we give lectures, kami ni Father B noon. Okay? Kaya nakakalibre ako ng misa araw-araw because he will say Mass for me 5:30. Okay. He says, when does dignity start? When the sperm shakes hands with the egg. Okay? That's how he explained it. In other words, it may be a bit naughty or cute or whatever, but one challenge also in our aral, so to speak, is we are able to communicate it effectively to others. And we have to use their language, the language of telenovelas. With the male folk, I was attending some get-togethers. Have you heard of Viva Max? Okay, it's an app. They're quite proud of it. Boss Vic is right. With all due respect to Boss Vic. But if you, let's just say, make a survey of security guards, for instance, and other workers, those light night workers, chances are they will be viewing soft porn through Viva Max. And that can get into the hands of young people, especially male people. Okay? That's another thing. Okay. Now, appropriations. There is money already, ready for this. Because government agencies can tap into, their GAD budget. When I was in government, one of the first things that was taught to me when preparing for the budget, DBM, and then my champion from the House, may sponsor kanyan and in the Senate, etc., and then with advice from COA, we have to ensure that 5% of an agency's total budget shall be devoted to GAD, gender and development. That has been since time immemorial, since the time of the Magna Carta for Women, MCW. Okay? Matagal na yan. Now, the thing there is that if you read MCW, women, okay? Women. But the thing there is that with gender as it has evolved, other genders, so to speak, have come in. You may want to argue that if you're going to use MCW, that's only for women. Right? Oh. That is why when we had talks, I was approached by a male gay employee of mine. Sir, bakit puro sa baba? Well, only the women. What about us? Sabi ko, sige, next year. And then I retired na. I resigned from government. Okay. So, I hope thank you very much. I hope we have time for a little Q&A. Yeah.
Thank you, Attorney. Thank you very much, Attorney Toto. It was definitely comprehensive. I'm still processing everything that you've said. And I'm sure also our attendees gathered a lot of valuable insights and ideas from this talk. So we just have time for one question.
Oh, pwedeng 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah,
okay,
1.5.
1.5. Is there anyone?
Maybe a child. So 1.5. Okay, please. Dapat pala planted. I would appreciate, or any reaction. I would want some reaction. Do I get to mean that we can now organize and help the public school teachers, for instance, to empower them? Ano ating tugon? Halimbawa dun sa mga community, sa barangay. They are aching just for, in the PAREF culture, you say people are aching for doctrine. But they're aching also for doctrine in terms of the law and social justice. And it helps na maging mulat tayo, and it starts from us. In the dinner table, for example, do we discuss things like the impeachment proceedings? Anong epekto sa atin yan? Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Attorney Toto, you mentioned, have you started gathering people and helping communities with this? Do you have an example of a module on how to approach sexuality education properly?
Okay. My thinking there is that, I could think of one. No? I have friends, for example, I don't know if it's proper na commercial, in EduChild, that they have a program where they reach out to the depressed communities. No? Okay. One of the persons involved there has been a friend of mine since college. The thing there is that maybe I will therefore relate our common experience during college. You may want to start small. Okay? Talk to the barangay captain, talk to the parish priest. It need not be very formal. But it's like this. When we were in college, and it's still, it's a long time, but it's still happening today, that's the sad part. We were teaching catechism in the informal settlers community. During that time, we just called them squatter. Okay, squatters community. Our basic problem, I'll go down na para showbiz. Okay, kasi ma'am, you also went there. Eh. Now, the thing there is that we had a problem. The children we cannot seem to penetrate them. They were listless when we're talking to them about, kasi Baltimore Catechism God the Father. The framework is that you introduce who is a father, right? He provides, he is kind, etc. Our discovery in that community, squatters community, is that they were lukewarm. Why? Because their dads, that even may be married to their moms, okay, will ask them to buy Cuatro Cantos, Ginebra, gin, and then, let's say, they fell short or whatever, they will just box the kids, child abuse. That will run counter to our Baltimore Catechism. God the Father is good. Our Father is bad. Okay? He kung fu's us. I'll fight you, your kung fu. Ganon, no? Okay. Now, you think that's where we go now to the women. Women folk. So, usually, rosary rally. Nax, ganyan. Okay, very framework So, again, a mother is kind, you can go to her, etc., because we need a framework for the Blessed Virgin Mary. Same reaction. Okay? We cannot come across. Why? Because their moms, so what we did, ma'am, is this. We befriended them. Some of my companions, one in fact is a senior economist now in UANP, maybe he retired already, but he looks like a goon. Okay? I will say that, baka kilala nyo But he was known for being a goon. So him and fellow goons, they had drinking sprees with temperance with the fathers. And that's how they penetrated. Okay? With the moms, it was more frightening. But you know that earlier, girl to girl, boy to boy. Okay? Then the feedback given to me, because I was the group leader, I was told, paano yung mga nanay? the moms, and even I heard it from one mom, I will say it first in the vernacular, masama po ba yung pakikiapid? I will translate, is adultery wrong? Or let's make it a bit saucy, is concubinage. Okay, concubinage wrong, okay? The different framework, okay? And you were shocked. Why? Because they were so dirt poor and there was no electricity then, by 7 o'clock, they have to go to bed. They have no CRs, by the way, no comfort rooms and everything. But they were so dirt poor that the men folk, being macho, could not even afford, in the ways of the world, prostitutes. So they engage in wife swapping. Okay, wife swapping. And therefore, we had our female fellow catechists befriend them, talk to them. Because our goal is, if your generation has already beyond hope, at the very least, come February, March, we will have Communion Day. Yun ang goal namin, makapag-Communion Day man lang. Okay. And then you will attend and okay, etc. So, that's how we did it. You start small. You go to a favorite parish priest or whatever. Filipinos kasi they're a bit clerical pa rin. Whatever the priest will say. And then start small. And then first, leveling. First month, wala mo ng whatever. Just try to know who they are there and where they're at. Okay. I hope I answered your question and did not scare you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So let's give a round of applause once again to our
May isa
speaker.
raw. Maikli lang. Yan. Sige, kasi gutom na
I'm
sila.
sorry, we don't have time anymore.
Oh, 30 seconds.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe you can just approach the speaker
Hindi.
after.
Pwede raw.
Ah.
Okay lang raw.
Okay.
Wala na?
After.
Okay, sige. Sorry, sir.
No more? Okay, sir.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so So we would like to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Attorney Toto Villareal for about his talk about the CSE, Comprehensive Sex Education. Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you very much for attending this breakout session. Please proceed to our next part of our conference.